very much. Wow, I am super here. I'm actually here because, well, his friends, I don't know if they're here, but they came to me and insisted that I come to Bulgaria. I was signing in Spain and they showed up. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to do a Q&A for maybe about a half hour. And then we will do the actual signing. We let you ask me questions, whatever you're curious at knowing. I'm good at talking, so I will just talk. And then we'll see how that goes, all right? We also can translate into Bulgarian if we need to. I don't know what they decided, but anyway, let's go ahead and do a Q&A and see what you guys are interested in hearing from me. So do we have any questions? Oh, we even have a microphone. Yeah. I'll let you choose who to. Oh, it's not on.
Ще му дам, да. Я проверя да върви. Може ли да
So I guess I'll dance.
Върви добре.
While we wait. Good. How about you come up here and you can ask it into the microphone while we let them figure it out.
Hi, my name is Ninel, and I'm curious about your last book, Miss Bond.
So the lost medal. Okay, so there's a bit of a story here. It is coming, but I'll tell you a little bit of the story of the Mistworn books first, because way back in 2004, that's when that's when I pitched the Mistborn series to my editor for the first time. So my first book that I sold was Logos, and then I was working on The Way of Kings at the time, and so I sent my editor The Way of Kings because he wanted to see what I was working on, and he called me back terrified. It was hilarious because he said, "This book is too big. It's enormous. I don't know what to do with this book." And I said, "I'll wait for it. I have another idea." And I told him about this idea of Mistworn, where I would write an epic fantasy series, and then some modern day books, and then a science fiction series, all in the same world. And he thought that was very ambitious, but he said, "We'll see what you can do." Well, I've kind of shown him what I can do. But what happened with the Wax and Wayne books was I didn't plan those originally. I originally was just doing the original trilogy, and then I was going to do a 1980s spy thriller, which I'm still planning. It's going to be great. Yeah, trust me, it's going to be awesome. But when I started working on Way of Kings, it's an experience and it turned out really well. So that's when I went and decided I'm going to do more of these characters. And so that's where the next 3 books came from. And I outlined them all together. I actually wrote the middle one first, the one that you're holding, Bands of Mourning, because I was having trouble getting the first one right, so I jumped and wrote the middle one. And then I went back and wrote Shadows of Self, which is now in Bulgarian, hint, hint. And I sent them to my editor together and said, I was supposed to write 1 book, but I wrote 2, which I do sometimes. And then I told him we've got 1 more, Lost Metal. The plan is to write that next year. and to have it published next fall or the following spring. Because right now I'm working on the third Stormlight book. Yes, the third Stormlight book. It is so big. It is super, super, super big, and I'm trying to cut it down. I did work on it in Bulgaria a little bit, so you can feel excited about that. But that is scheduled in English for November. And my publisher here wants it as soon as possible because he wants to try and publish it around the same time. So we will see. All right, other questions? And you can ask in Bulgarian. Yeah. Did we have this working? Yes. Nope, no, it's still not, nope. No, okay. Why don't you come on up? And I'll dance. No, I won't dance.
Моля ви. I'm not so loud like you. What is going on here? So, моля ви, който иска да задава въпрос, направо да идва тук и очевидно този микрофон нещо остава и малко може да тръгне.
Hi, I'm very happy to see you in person. I'm a huge fan not only of your fiction, but writing skills also. I'm not sure if my question is related to maybe writing skills, but you're very meticulous about your magic systems. Aren't you afraid sometimes that this takes away the sense of wonder? And yeah, for example, in The Way of Kings, it's more wondrous, in my opinion, than in Mistborn, for example. So how do you manage this? Thank you.
This is an excellent question. It's actually something I think about a lot. And tomorrow my lecture, because they asked me to do a lecture, will be a little bit about this idea. So if you're interested in writing, you can come to the lecture. But balance between a sense of wonder and a sense of understanding on the magic, that's a difficult balance. And I don't think there's a right way to do it. I think a lot of great books sometimes use both. For instance, I don't know if you've read Name of the Wind, but Pat Rothfuss uses both a hard magic system and a soft magic system. The naming, which is very soft, and the sympathy, which is very hard. Hard is a term for very rule-based, so that we explain it a lot. The more you explain, the less sense of wonder you have. But I feel that the more you explain, the more you can also use the magic to solve all kinds of cool problems and create sort of an intellectual enjoyment. And so it's a different distinction between and kind of this sort of intellectual problem-solving sense. And I tend to go this direction a little bit. I think fantasy naturally has a bunch of wonder to it in the settings in the world. So I think that they balance each other naturally when I push a little bit this direction. But it is a trade-off. It is something that I wonder about. So it's a good question. So other questions? Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Danny. I'm super excited to be here. First, I want to say all of your books are my favorite books. And another question about the Mistborn series. I love the books, but I'm still so upset that you killed off Kelsire. And I want to ask if there was any time when you were writing the book, do you think about not killing him off? And what would happen to him if he didn't die?
Okay. So let's try to avoid in the future too many spoilers. I'll talk around it. Sometimes characters die in my books. It does happen. And usually, as a writer, I don't think of it as killing the character. I think of it as letting the character take risks. And sometimes I don't pull the punch, right? I let the risk have danger associated with it. And this is really up to the individual character. But if I always stop all the consequences, I feel there won't be a sense of threat in the book. And sometimes characters demand. And so it's less about what do I think I want to do and more about what is the character demand that I must let them do. However, there will be a book eventually, it's in English already, that you will want to read that is some of a certain character's backstory and history that will probably illuminate your question quite a bit. It's called Secret History. And so that should eventually come. Okay, so yeah. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, you're awesome. Okay, so my question is about Yolen. If or when you choose to rewrite Hoyt's origin story, do you plan to keep the same plot in Yolen, where the Smurf takes over the whole planet, etc.?
Okay, so there, I need to give you some back history to this one.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's working. Hey, good job. So, my epic fantasy books. This is all of them, but not Steelheart and not The Arithmetist. So the epic fantasy are all connected, if you weren't aware. They all have little ties between characters, and there's a character named Hoyd who's shown up in all of the books, basically. He's the same person. And when I was earlier in my career, before I published, I tried writing his origin story, and I failed. The book wasn't very good, and I tried it again later, after I was published, and I failed again. It still wasn't very good. And this still happens to me. Sometimes I try things out, and they just don't work. And so the question, am I going to try it when I go back to it, will it be the same story? The core heart of it will be the same. And there are certain events that Hoyd has talked about in the books that are published that I will make sure are still relevant. But the story continues to evolve in my head. And so I will have to decide eventually what things I want to do and what I don't. I think it will change from what I originally planned. But the soul should be the same. The core should still be the same. It'd be very different from Dragonsteel, though, which was the one I wrote in 1998, because that had Bridge 4 in it, and I moved them to Stormlight Archive. And so that book, most of that book is gone, and it ended up in the Stormlight Archive. So who knows what will go, yeah, it'll be very different from that. Okay, other questions now that we have a working microphone. All right.
Hey, my name is Stefan, and I have a question. Sorry. What was your favorite book to write?
Oh, good question. You know, picking favorites is very hard. I'm not sure if I can pick favorites, but I can talk about different emotions. For instance, some books are very satisfying, but other books are more fun. When I get about Wayne, it's a lot of fun. He is just super fun to write about. The chapter in Shadows of Self, where he goes to the Church of the Common Man, as he calls it, was just the most fun thing I've written in years. But the big, intricate books are more satisfying. So, for every book. In fact, that's why I write so many different things. After I finish a novel, I generally want to try to get something that has a very different emotion to it. For myself, it's a little bit like, I don't know if you guys, when you eat some cheese, you usually like take a bite of something very different in between, like a grape, and then go back to your cheese so that you are frequently shifting flavors. And that's how it is for me with books. That's where the Legion books came from. That's where Emperor's Soul came from, was me needing to switch flavors for a little while in between other books. So, yeah. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Toyan. I love your books.
Thank you.
I even got this.
Oh, wow. There
as
you
soon
go.
as I could. Who was the lady Liv saw in Edge Dancer?
Who was the
lady? She saw tall the person who she wondered who she was.
Okay. The tall person, Raffo. So Raffo stands for read and find out. It also means I'm not going to answer that right now. It could mean it's important. It could just mean I want you to keep theorizing. So I'm not going to give you the answer yet. But it's a good question. But the Polish took all of my cards that say Raffo on them, so you'll have to go get one from them. I gave them all away.
Hi. I'm a huge fan, and you mentioned that you outline all 3 books. And once I'm guessing that you do that a lot with series, especially as complex as you make them. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, is there something in the Mistborn series that ended up being very, very different than what you planned?
Oh, what a great question. Yes, there was in the Mistborn series. So the big thing that changed was spook. Did you guys, how do they translate that in Bulgarian? Do you use spook? Lessborn? In the 3rd Mistborn book, spook, the character, what's that? Pook? I can't, Duke? Okay, I cannot pronounce Bulgarian at all. I am so bad at it. But that character, he was not originally going to have his own section in the 3rd book. It was while I was writing some things for him in the 2nd book that I really came to enjoy, that then I made that whole sequence in the 3rd book with him. That wasn't in the outline. And that's a major part of the 3rd book. So even still, though I outline a lot, you, as an outliner, I think you need to have lots of flexibility to go ahead and change things when exciting ideas occur to you, when you feel like you want to go a different direction. So changing things is dangerous, but it's also, it takes some of the best stuff in the books.
Hello, my name is Maria, and I love your books. They're all amazing.
Thank you, Maria.
I was wondering, first of all, how did you come up with the idea about the Arithmetist, and are you thinking of continuing in that world?
Good question. My publisher told me they're going to ask about the Arithmetist. So Arithmetist has a really fun story. I was working on the Hoyd origin storybook, which was then called The Liar of Partenelle. And I was failing, and it was going terribly, and it was an awful, awful book, and I forced myself to finish it, and I was so annoyed by it that I didn't want to work on it anymore, even though I told my publisher I was going to share it with them. And in order to escape this book that was terrible, I sat down and I started drawing the defenses for the Arithmetist. And this is not something I'd planned to write. I just wanted to do something very different and escape this terrible book, which was failing. And so it started with the defenses. I drew out the defenses. I wanted to do something that was like playing StarCraft with chalk. That was my idea for myself. StarCraft with chalk in a fantasy world. I drew out all the defenses and all the lines first, designed the magic system, and then I wrote the book after doing that. And it was really a fun experience. The book turned out great. And so I called my publisher and I said, I'm going to do a trilogy on this Arithmetist book instead of Liar Partenelle. And I was getting ready to do the 2nd one, and then a very, very strange event happened in my life. I got a phone call, unexpectedly, from a woman. She said, "My name is Harriet Rigney. I'm Robert Jordan's widow. Will you finish The Wheel of Time?" And I had not expected that. I didn't know her. I hadn't applied for this. But she really liked Mistborn, and she wanted me to finish The Wheel of Time. And so I was dumbfounded, speechless, surprised, and I said yes, but what I had to do was put off the Arithmetist, because The Wheel of Time now had to be my main project, and the Arithmetist had been something I'd just written for fun. There was no contract for it. It was just something I had wanted to do. Once The Wheel of Time was done, I released it, and I had an outline for a second book, and I tried to write, and the book was bad. My outline wasn't good enough. I was disappointed in it. I got maybe 3 or 4 chapters in, and I scrapped it, and I built a new outline, which I really like now, but then the time was up, and the Stormlight book had to be written, and so I started on that. And so once I have the new Stormlight book done, I still have that outline, and I really like it, and so I'm planning to do more, but we will see how long it takes me to do the 4th Wax and Wane and a lot of these other things that I'm scheduled to do. But yes, I plan to do a second Riftist. The ending is very much implies there will be a second one, but then where is the second one? And that's what happened. The Wheel of Time hit me like a train. It just kind of ran me over, and I'm still recovering. All right.
When?
What's that?
When?
When will I write it? I have no idea when I will write it. Hopefully soon, but I don't know.
Hello, my name is Martin. I think possibly 50% of the questions here are related to your characters of different books. I think it's no surprise since all of your characters are so interesting. You mentioned that you let them sort of live their own life. But my question to you is, do you like to implement characteristics of people you know, family or friends, into your characters?
Yes, I do. My wife said I can't put her in any books. She didn't want that. But all of my friends said, yes, put us in books and then kill us. They really like this idea of appearing in books and then being killed in creative ways. But as a writer, I'm always watching for interesting character quirks. For instance, Serene from Elantris is based on a good friend of mine. And really I'm watching for interesting conflict. Conflict is where characters come from. Every one of us has like things inside of us that conflict with other things. My wife is a good example. She won't let me use this, but she's an introvert. She likes to hide when everything is, when there's parties, she doesn't want to go to the party. She wants to go away and be by herself, except if there's a chance to teach, because she's a teacher. And then she gets up in front of everyone and she takes over. And this is a nice contrast in the fact that sometimes she wants to hide, but sometimes she also wants to be in front of everyone. These contrasts are what make characters. Kaladin is based on a guy who is trained to be a surgeon, who's really good at killing people too. And that sort of contrast. The contrast is the man who is a con artist who's decided he wants to do something good, but he doesn't really know how. Right? He doesn't know how to be a good person. He's going to try his best, but really, it's the idea, that contrast. And I'm always watching for things that will make good contrast inside of characters.
Hello, my name is Kirill. First of all, I want to say I'm really overwhelmed of meeting you in person.
Thank you.
I was introduced to you, to your books and all of your stories last year, and I read them all for something like 3 months. And you are now my top author of all time.
Thank you.
I know it doesn't mean much to you, but I got a question for you. I really enjoy all of your works, but I especially enjoy all the you said those fun works you do between the serious works. I really enjoyed the Calamity series. I know that you're planning on Apocalypse Guard series that is going to be in somehow reverse universe. And I know you're planning a 4th book on the Wayne series. Are you planning any more such kinds? Because I really like the steampunk fantasy and urban fantasy subgenres.
Yeah, I am planning more, and there will be lots more side wacky crazy things like that, steampunk and whatnot. I've got some really good ideas. I just have to find the time to write them. And so, yeah, and you will also see more sort of those elements even in Stormlight as we move forward, because magical technology is a big deal on Stormlight. So keep your eyes open on some of the things that they start talking about. Keep your eyes on, open, yeah. Okay, watch the things they talk about, because eventually in Stormlight this sort of stuff will become relevant. Not the third book. For those who don't know, Stormlight is 10 books, but it's 2 sets of 5. So first 5 will be will come to an ending, and then the next 5 will take place in the world about 10 years later. Yes, there'll be a 1980s, and then a science fiction. Yep. Yeah, 1980s one is going to be fun. It's, like I said, Cold War-ish, but on Scadrial. It's going to be great. But yes, then there'll be a science fiction epic in where they use allomancy and feruchemy to achieve space travel. So, yeah. All right, let's do 2 more questions, and then I've got some announcements and things, okay?
Hi, my name is Maria. It's a really pleasure to meet you. First of all, I'm a huge fan of the Stormlight Archive, and my friends here introduced me to your books, and they insisted me to ask you a question. So my first question is, do you have a favorite character among your characters? And the second one is, can I have more Navani, please? She's my favorite.
So usually when someone asks my favorite character, I cheat, and I say whoever I'm writing right now. But that's a cheat. That's a cheat. Really, probably my favorite character is Dalinar, because I started. He was the first. You know how? Yeah. Thank you. Dalinar. I started thinking of Dalinar and devising his story when I was 16. So he's been with me the longest. And there will be some more Navani. In fact, there's Navani viewpoints in the 3rd book. So not a ton, but there are a few. So you will get some more Navani, and there is some more in the series. I think you'll be happy. All right, last question, and then we'll do some announcements. Don't worry if you didn't get called on. You can ask when you come through the line. It's okay.
Hello. You have a lot of projects all in the same time, so I have to ask, does that help or is it a hindrance with writer's block? So do you often get the temptation, oh, I'm stuck here, let me work on the other thing?
I have found that if I stop working on one thing and move to another, in the middle, it is really bad for the project, because then getting back into it is super hard. So it was bad earlier in my career, but now I have learned I have to keep going unless I'm going to abandon the project entirely. Which I usually don't want to do. So sometimes I don't get to choose. Sometimes a deadline happens and the book has to be revised and things like this. And that's actually why, going back to an earlier question, why I wrote Bands of Morning before Shadows of Self, which is right up here. Hey, I wrote half of, and then had a deadline on something else, and I went and worked on that, and I came back to this, and I had real trouble getting back into it. So I jumped and wrote the 3rd book, Bands of Morning. And once I was back in the world and characters, I could go back and could finish this one, and then it worked just fine. But yeah, I try not to. All right, so a few announcements. I will stay until everyone's books are signed. This might take a little while. It'll take a few hours. So if you end up in the back of the line, you can actually go get some food or browse. Just keep an eye on this, and you can come back and check on us periodically. You don't have to stand in line the whole time. You can leave and come back. That's okay. Keep an eye on it. I expect we'll be here for 2 or 3 hours at least. So keep that in mind. They should have given you a Post-it note. Someone who's got one, hold it up. Yes, that's so you can write your name or the name you want the book dedicated to, and I will do that for you to keep things moving along. If you could just stick those on the front cover of the book that you want dedicated, that would help out a lot. And you can write in Cyrillic or Latin. Just be prepared to know that if I write in Cyrillic, it's going to look bad. But my handwriting's terrible anyway, so we will have someone up here to take pictures, and they will take your camera from you. Once they take your camera, just go ahead and give me your books. I'll start working on them. Then you put yourself where you want to stand, and get ready, and they will count to 3 in English, and I will look up on 3. I'm like a trained dog. It's great. You'll love it. It's hilarious. So I will look up on 3, and we'll take the picture, and then ask me your question and chat with me. We will have my translator Jo sitting up here. Yes, there she is, and she'll translate to English or Bulgarian if you want to. If you don't want to ask a question or chat in English, we'll have her. And so, otherwise, thank you guys so much. Thank you for giving me such a warm welcome.
Само още едно нещо. Тук има няколко майки с деца. Искам само да ви помоля да ги пуснете първо тях да минат. Ето там едно бебенце видях. Тук имаше една друга майка с едно бебенце. Просто, нали, все пак. И след това вече може да хапнете, да се разхождате и на всеки ще отговаря на въпросите наистина, така че с който не е успял да се зададе въпроса, ще успее. Благодаря ви.